But for me, in self-reflection, it was like, how often am I on this device at home for no practical benefit?
What our actions are, our kids are gonna follow. So if the kids see us that are always distracted and on a device, then they'll follow likewise.
That's exactly right.
If there's a challenge in this podcast, it'd be like, so what are you gonna do? What am I gonna do? And then what are y'all gonna do as listeners or viewers?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Catholic Dads Podcast. Glad that you're joining us. This is Jeff.
And I'm Chad.
Welcome back.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody has noticed, but at the end of the video of the last one that's released, the most recent released, which was the Protect Your Children episode.
Yeah.
There's kind of like a blooper reel. It kind of lightens up the.
Nice.
It kind of lightens up the heavy topic, but be looking for that. You never know.
Which, by the way, we're still in the thick of that ridiculously. I mean, it just, that's not going to be the topic of today. I know there's some letters out there that Catholic lay people have been sending. Just really quickly, I'm really flabbergasted by the response of the church leadership, especially Francis and the other folks around him to this thing. I mean, it broke that week, and then I don't remember the name of the guy, said something like, it was that the church needs to be focused on the important things like climate change and migrants and that sort of thing. You're like, there's a very clear, well-defined, fortunately we have a lot of these over the years, crisis management, crisis response, almost like an industry where, public relations people can come in and you can get the CEO in front of the camera saying, oh my gosh, we're so sorry and we're disappointed that we've let everybody down. There's ways that organizations, especially leadership in those organizations, should respond to these sort of things. And the leadership in the church almost seems to be going out of their way to do the opposite of what they should be doing to address it. Right? It's not, this is a serious matter and we want to look into it and we understand what's going on. Right now we don't have the facts and we don't want people to go too far. So, that's a fine response. But going back and saying, we've got more important things to do, good grief, that's the exact opposite thing that you're supposed to do.
Well, I think what you're referring to is there was one bishop that said something like that. It was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then they blew up one of the quotes that the Pope was like, he had said something about the plastic in the ocean.
Right, exactly.
But I mean, I believe truly, first of all, and again, this isn't the topic, but since we're talking about it, number one, take everything in context, and mainstream media hates the church. Let's just be real. Mainstream media hates the church. So they're going to take any soundbite that they can that's going to look bad for the church, and they're going to put that out there as a headline. I don't doubt that Francis said that. But what was the context in which he said it? I don't think they were
encyclical or something that he was writing on the health of the oceans.
So I don't think that he was like focusing on this crisis and he said, hold on, Mr. Reporter,
right?
There's a bigger crisis than the sex abuse scandal in the church. Have you seen the plastic in the oceans?
Right.
It wasn't like that. So just take all that for what it's worth. I mean, because the Catholic bishops did release a statement that addressed everything and the needs for looking into it by a third party type audit,
grand jury, right?
Well, it wouldn't be a grand jury. They're talking about something different.
Yeah.
I mean, I imagine there's going to be a grand jury thing for every state now, but who knows?
Yeah. No, that's not the topic. But I'd like to see specifically.
Have you written the bishop?
I saw your letter. I have not sent it off yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, the bishop.
Yeah. Well, and the great thing is, we have Cardinal Donardo here, who's the
so he's the president of the USCCB. Right. So we got,
and he's got a great statement, right? And there was a bishop as well in New Mexico that had a great statement. Our bishop, when we came into the church, which his name is just going to jump out of my head, and he's actually over in Philadelphia now. Sheppy, thank you. He was the bishop in Denver when we joined the church. He had a really good statement on it as well. So, the bishops certainly, the American bishops, where they're closest to the crisis, seem to be responding to it as they should.
Yeah.
So
Cool. But you've got a different little
yeah. So that was just
topic.
exactly. That goes off on a completely different tangent. So, but I thought we've talked about this forever. We'll do kind of a two-parter about our phones and our devices. So the first part of the two-parters, we'll hit you up with the negative part, and then later on we'll talk about the good stuff that comes with it, because there's certainly a lot of good stuff that comes with our devices. But the topic today really is,
Or in the spirit of my renewed challenging attitude,
Right.
I might just interject.
you might just say that all the good stuff is right now, right?
Yeah.
I would, so I guess I'll set up a story, and I think I've told you the story before, and it'll come across as judgmental, and I don't care, it's our podcast, right? It had been weeks ago now. We were at a restaurant, I got there early, I was waiting to meet Aaron and some friends, so I got there early after work or whatever, and I'm sitting in my car listening to whatever it was, book on tape, or maybe I was talking to my mom. I think I was talking to my mom. Anyway, we're at this restaurant, and this dad walks out, right? And he's got this just adorable, say 2-year-old little girl, right? And it was a little bit of a nicer restaurant, so you can imagine, they're probably sitting in there, and she's getting a little fussy and whatever. It's a little bit later dinner or whatever, and so he's, outside, and his little girl, they're walking up and down the sidewalk, and she's trying to stop and look at things, and the guy was on his phone, walking the whole time, with his phone holding her hand, kind of pulling her, and then she'd go ahead and look at something, but he just kept his pace, wasn't even there. Now, obviously, I don't know any of the circumstances behind why that guy was on his phone. He may have had a crisis at work. He may have had a crisis in family, et cetera, et cetera. We don't have to say all that stuff, right? The topic was, in that moment, just seeing that, generic dad with his beautiful little daughter, having older kids now, right, and knowing really how fast that goes, and him on his device, the optics there, the view of that was it just struck me, right? Because I'm that dad all the time at home, all the time, right? And so nothing about that dad, whatever he was doing was fine, right? But for me, in self-reflection, it was how often am I on this device at home for no practical benefit, when I've got kids in the house that are upstairs on their devices, that maybe I haven't even really talked to much today, or maybe haven't even seen me today because I got home for work and they're upstairs doing their thing, and I missed out on dinner and I missed out on whatever. So really the topic today is, let's talk about the interruption that the phones cause, because we have all the little notifications, we have the dings, and we have this sense that as soon as somebody texts me, I have to see who it is and have to write them back. Right, there's a chemical hormonal response there. Let's talk about the Facebook, the social media stuff. Those have been designed with addictive qualities built in. The same ideas that the guys that do slot machines, the rings, the endorphins that you get, all of that stuff's built in. So when you swipe, right, it's designed, right? Your mind constantly wants to see just what's down below. Mm-hmm. It's designed that way. It's designed to keep you hooked so they can sell the ads and everything else, which is part of the deal. If you use it, great, right? You just have to know that. But the key is, as a dad, and I always look back to our dad's generation, the generation before, didn't have that stuff, right? I remember my dad, he came home after work, we would have dinner, we would do whatever. He might work on a project, he might be in his den, because back then dads had dens, and it would be
man cave.
Yeah, exactly. The pre-man cave would be the den, right? He had a roll-top desk and the whole deal. He might be in there, paying bills, but we'd sit around and watch TV shows together. We'd watch the evening news together. I mean, I think a lot of the experience I had growing up watching, Peter Jennings' ABC Nightly News in the 80s, and at 8, 9 years old, seeing the Cold War, seeing all of that sort of stuff, that really affected me and matured me in a lot of ways. I remember, just there was a newscast about cocaine and crack that had just come out and was a big deal, right? I haven't touched drugs ever in my life, right? And I look back at that, and that, that newscast about all these people dying, and then my dad sitting there saying...
That basketball star died of crack. I hadn't even heard of what crack was. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, but I mean, that's... Anyway, so the point is, I was spending that time with my dad, and sure, we were watching the news, but he was there and said, look, these drugs are so dangerous, you try them one time and they'll kill you. It's not like, you can play around with it and then just get unlucky. Right, and we had that conversation. I remember clearly, right, because I was there. My dad was there. I was there. We were there, interacting. And the other day, I was putting one of the little ones to bed, and I was on my phone, probably on Facebook or whatever. And my older son came in and just wanted to talk to me about something. And literally I was like so distracted that he was like, okay, fine, and walked out of the room. I was like, oh. Like, he was literally talking to me, and I just, was trying to get the little one down. I was distracted on my phone. I didn't give him that time, So I wanted to just kind of put that out there, and so let's talk about how these things can just insidiously get into the middle of family life, weekends, holidays, whatever, and talk about that as a Catholic dad.
Yeah, well, I think so. So in the spirit of the path that you want to go on the podcast, yes. What I see the biggest difference, obviously, is that when you give somebody something of their own that they can distract their own selves with, and that could be, it doesn't have to be a device. It could be a book. Sure. You know what I mean? Like if you've got a bookworm in the house and you give them a book,
right.
And y'all are all gonna try to do family time. They might be in the corner reading the book, not really participating in family time. Right. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a device, but it's this personal thing. I've got this tablet, this phone, and why do I need to watch TV, which I might not want to watch what's on TV,
right?
And that's another thing. It's like it kind of goes back to like, well, is TV really where you want to go with this? I mean, is TV something that we want to be, gathered around?
I remember playing board games, and I don't know if we had like a set board game night or not, but we played a lot of board games. I played chess with my dad, right? That was one of the, he taught me how to play chess. We played chess together. We had a board game that we played as a family based on Murder, She Wrote, the old, Angel Lansbury show, which I won't get into all the details, but looking back on it, I was like, ooh, we really played that game? But anyway. Yeah. That I remember those memories, right? And I think as a general statement, you really have to make that an effort now because of the distractions that we have,
I agree,
right?
Yeah.
Where before, my impression is that it was easier. It probably wasn't. It was probably just as difficult because we had other distractions. But that impression was we didn't have as many distractions, right? Now, the flip side was my dad couldn't pay bills on his phone. I remember him sitting on the couch at the end of the month doing the checkbook. Yeah. And he'd have a whole pile of the bills on the table. Yeah. And he'd have the checkbook out, and he was trying to reconcile my mom's checkbook with his checkbook because my mom never wrote anything down. Sorry, Mom. And all that kind of stuff. So, he had to balance the checkbook by hand. Yeah. So there was like different things, right? Different distractions. But I think the key for the phones is that it's so much easier, right? Because it's in our pocket and you feel the buzz. And I'm trying to have a conversation with you right now, but my phone's buzzing. Yeah. It's like, why don't you take it just a minute, right? Because maybe it's my office, maybe it's my wife, maybe it's my kid, maybe it's, who cares? I'm talking to Chad.
That's right.
In
more important
in 10 minutes, it's not going to be that big a deal. I mean, there's maybe as part of this topic as well, there's this compulsion that these things generate, right? So when my dad was sitting at the couch balancing the checkbook, there's not an endorphin generating compulsion that is giving him any sort of benefit for balancing the checkbook. So when I come up and want to play chess,
no, it's the opposite.
Exactly.
Balancing the checkbook is like,
maybe we can do this, right? But that's what these are. It's a compulsion. It does. It's endorphins. You can read about it, and look it up. There's some really good TED Talks on it. There's some really interesting, background on how these things actually it's a physical chemical reaction that is an endorphin deal, just like anything else that gives you endorphins. And we need to be really careful about that. Even to the point where we're like, we've talked about having like a little box by the front door, right? When you like walk in, I don't know, maybe this is like a product idea or something, but you can set custom.
I think Chick-fil-A has that.
Yeah, I mean, it does it. Like, you can just
where you put the phone in the box, and if you do it for the whole time that you're there, they'll give you free ice cream.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's like it's in the middle of the table, and you.
I'll have to keep an eye on the Chick-fil-A if we do that. But I mean, you could imagine having something like that in the front door. Now, we both have jobs where we could get called anytime, day or night, by anybody, and we have to respond. Yeah, okay. I've got elderly grandparents, and want to keep close to my phone just in case anything. We have all these like excuses, but do you really, right? Can we go from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock while our kids are awake, not checking Facebook once, not posting anything, not having it, and I found even having it in your pocket when you're trying to have a conversation with somebody, there's still that compulsion there, right? So if you ever catch yourself checking it while you're driving, that's a pretty big clue that there's something going on there. You pull up to a stoplight, like, oh, I can just check my email really quick. I can check Facebook really quick, right? There's something there that's compulsing us as Catholic dads to do that. We need to try to not do that, right? Yeah. Because if we're doing it at a stoplight, then we're going to do that when we're with our kids. We're going to do that when we're with our wives, right?
Yeah. So one of the things I just discovered was you can change your phone from color to black and white. And then there's a write-up that says that, because it's all in color, it's like, oh, look how beautiful it is.
Oh, interesting.
When you turn it to black and white,
Boring.
it's totally boring.
Yeah.
And and everything is black and white. So if you go to take a picture, it looks like it's in black and white, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be in color whenever you flip it back.
Sure.
I didn't try it, but I did it, man. I changed it to black and white, and I couldn't even last a day with it on black and white.
That's
it just drove
awesome.
me
Okay,
nuts.
I'm going to totally do it.
Yeah, so and
Really
they have it buried in there. It's like general accessibility something or other, and then
do you really want accessibility? Is this really a good idea?
Yeah,
Should you really do this? Do you really want to do it? Put in that key card. Okay,
yeah,
do it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. So there is something to be said that it's distracting us. I do believe though that it's not necessarily the phones that. Well, I think the phones maybe distract us more than anything else. And the kids are on the phones quite a bit too. But what would you do about the video games?
Right.
Because that's for us, and one of the things that I think, kind of, if there's a challenge in this podcast, it'd be like, so what are you going to do? What am I going to do? And then what are y'all going to do as listeners or viewers to kind of combat that?
Right.
What are you going to, what's your plan?
Yeah. So I like the black and white idea a lot. I think that's really good. One of the things that, just like at work, right, because you do this at your work computer as well, turn off your notifications, right? As much as you possibly can, turn off your notifications. So the only notification I have on my phone now are calendar things, because you get busy at work, you forget what meeting you're supposed to be at and what day it is and that sort of thing. So those are really the only notifications that I have that pop up. So the constant ping of your emails or whatever, text messages of course still come through because of that. Use your do not disturb button. Dude, that's the first step, right? So put do not disturb on when you don't want to be disturbed. If you're in a meeting, put on do not disturb, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you get home, put on do not disturb. It'll be there, right? But then you're not getting that constant click, 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 right? I went like 2 days with it do not disturb turned on and didn't even realize it. It was great, right? So that would be the first thing.
That's why you never answered me.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? And I had our house mom back in the fraternity house years ago taught me this lesson. I was sitting in her room, and she had a wired phone still at that point, right? And she was a great counselor, child of the 60s, the best house mom you could imagine, Sherry Wilson. And her phone started ringing, right? And we were having a chit chat. She didn't even budge. She didn't do the jump. She didn't even look at it, right? So you need to answer that. Right? She said, no, that's a right, not a privilege, right? When they call me, that person is interrupting me. There's no privileged response that you should expect. So keep that in mind too. You don't have to respond to that person right away, right?
Yeah.
For most part. So the devices, the handheld mobile devices that you're putting in your pocket, that you carry all day, that have the little buzz, that have the little beep, that's a separate case of distraction that we need to manage specifically because of how accessible it is, right? It's all about accessibility. The Facebook, the people that are selling the ads and selling the goods, they're designed to do that. They want you on that. The video games, the YouTube, television, all of that, I almost see that as a separate, bigger box that just gets to the whole idea of, is it healthy for them to be playing Fortnite 8 hours a day? Is it healthy? It wouldn't be healthy for me to sit around and watch movies. And that almost for me, because it's not quite as accessible, is more of a moderation kind of discussion.
Yeah.
Right. So, the phone being such an immediate distraction, that's when you're out eating dinner with people and the phone rings, or, you put your phone up on your table while you're eating dinner with your kids. It's like, well, why is it there, right? For me, that's much more of a distracting problem than, the kids that want to play video games all the time. When I was growing up, I wanted to play video games all the time, right? I mean, my parents had to, yank me outside, lock the door, throw me out there and make me enjoy the summer in Colorado, right? So it was, God, it's so hot. Oh, it's brutal. So that, I think all kids have that. And just like you were saying, you may have the book room in the family that you go on family vacation, and we've had that where they just bring books. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm just going to read this book. I'm into this book. I brought 3 books. I'm just going to do books. That's almost kind of the same thing as the kid that just wants to play video games all the time. Having, and everybody has seen it, walking through the grocery stores, walking through restaurants, going wherever, where you see the little kids that have the device and they're like watching TV as mom shopping. You know, yeah, I get it. You know, I totally get doing that. But on the flip side, you know, if you could turn that around and get the kid engaged with what you're doing and you know, ideally, right? You know, that you have to argue that that's going to be better in the long term, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have that interaction, right, in the long term. You know, who again, right? Not judging anybody for what they're doing. You know, we were at Lowe's last weekend selling popcorn. There was a lot of families coming through, and there was kids of all ages, right? All ages, just walking with the screens, headphones in. Dad's going to the hardware store, buying whatever, doing whatever. Mom's there getting plants, and the kid is just like completely disengaged from what's happening around them. Where, you know, that's an opportunity to go into that hardware store and say like, okay, why don't you tell me where the lumber is? Why don't you go pick out some plants with me? Like, you know, this is the project we're working on. We're going to need these kind of screws. You know, it's a little bit of a, you know, for me, you know, it's a little disappointing now. You know, that I mean, pot calling the kettle black. I'm sure we use devices to, you know, placate and medicate our kids all the time. Of course we do, right? Our kids play ridiculously amounts of Fortnite and download games. They do all that stuff, right? But you know, for me, it's really the devices and not giving it to the kids. That's a whole other conversation, right? It's all about the dads having it and us being distracted from what we need to do. That's really the core of what we're talking about.
Yeah,
right?
in that it's what our actions are, our kids are gonna follow. So if their kids
exactly
see us that are always distracted and on a device, then they'll follow likewise.
That's exactly right.
But you know, I think as far as like one of the things that we're doing now is, you know, now that school has started back in the Williams homeschool, we've set strict time limits on the when they can be on the games.
Yeah.
Which by extension is basically if they're in that time frame, they'll either be, because we have only one game console and we have so many kids, that they have to kind of stage when they're on it, so that cuts down significantly the amount of time that they're on the game. And then, yeah, if they're not on the game, they might pick up their phone and do some stuff. But we've got Circle to shut off the internet now, so like at a certain time of every night it shuts down. And right now we're going through the transition period. They're just like withdrawal. They're like, "What are you doing?"
Yep.
So it's really awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm happy to have that.
Gosh, we can't speak highly enough at Circle. Maybe we can. Catholic Dads has an unofficial endorsement of Circle, right? Because it's a great program. It's a good system. We do the same thing, right? It's the oldest daughter wants to stay up till whenever doing school work, right, till 2 a.m. Like, no, right? Internet 10:30 done, right?
Yeah.
We're cutting it off. There's nothing that you need to be doing after 10:30 at night. You can pick up a book if you really want to stay up. But
Yeah.
it's great. It's really good.
And I think so. Like going back to what I was just saying, their device, having that device is really affecting the way their do you call it habits? Do you call it, you know, patterns or whatever? But it's like they've gotten so used to over this summer going to sleep by watching YouTube or by, you know, doing like, so the game is okay. It's time to get off the games, but it's time for bed now. And now they're in bed and they're on their phones.
Right.
That now that I've taken that away from them, they're not sleeping well right now. They're like, you know, what did you do? And, you know, this is crazy and I'm not sleeping well and I'm waking up too early. And so it's thrown everything off. But in the long run, I believe it's going to be a positive. And then obviously, I mean, I would imagine, I think I've got the timer set differently for the weekend than for the weekday. But there still is a timer.
Yeah.
But it'll be a little bit more relaxed during the weekend. But I think it's, you know, there's things that we can do. So again, the challenge is, you know, what are you going to do? Maybe set some type of hard limit. Maybe when you're going to the store, you know, again, it's got to start with you. So when I'm saying set the hard limit on Circle, I set myself a limit for Facebook.
Nice.
Because whenever I looked at how much time I spent on Facebook, I was aghast.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yep.
So I set a time limit for myself for Facebook every day.
So apparently the next version of, you know, the iOS or whatever is going to be coming with a lot of those things built in as well. I've heard so the pendulum is swinging back, right? We've had these amazing devices. They're, you know, you really think about historically what these are, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you give somebody in the 1500s, one of our phones and tell them what it can do, right? I mean, it's like magic.
Oh, give somebody in the 70s one of our phones and they'd be like,
it's science fiction, right? But the pendulum is coming back. So iOS is going to have limits for a lot of these apps that are apparently built in. It's going to give you usability metrics. It's going to give you reminders that, hey, you've been on this for 45 minutes today and all those stuff.
Yeah.
From what I've heard, right? I don't know what it's going to be when it's done. So I think you are seeing it. It's pushed back a little bit, but really, for Catholic dads, you have to set the example, right? And it's for me personally, I'm crazy hooked. I mean, I completely recognize it.
Right? And not only set the example, but like come up with the alternatives. So like at night, we've inspired by our novenas podcast.
Yeah,
we started doing some novenas.
Nice.
And so we're on our second novena, and now what we're doing is our bedtime routine. It just took, a little bit of time to get used to the new routine. Mm-hmm. But now the bedtime routine is everybody comes downstairs. We using the device for good. Yeah. We put the prayer up on the TV, mm-hmm. so everybody can read it together. And then after we've read the novena prayer, we'll do our nightly prayers, mm-hmm. and then we go to bed. Yeah. And it's just like, again, set the example of what you're going to do with the device, put it away, mm-hmm. Limit your time on it, but also provide those alternatives to the old routine, which might have been watching videos or playing video games. Mm-hmm. Well, now the new routine is we're going to be saying prayers, set some game nights like you had mentioned earlier. Give them something as an alternative.
That's right.
If you're walking through the hardware store, instead of just be like, you're coming with me, and be like, look at all this awesome stuff.
Right.
Look at what would you build if you had all this stuff? I mean, make
the tools side.
Yeah, make it interesting. And I don't know about the grocery store though. I mean, the grocery store, it's like if they're not distracted with something, they're going to be like, I want that. I want that.
Yeah, exactly.
I want that. And you're like,
yeah.
Look at your phone.
Anyway, so we'll do a positive. This isn't we're not device Puritans, right?
No,
devices have a place and they're great and they're fabulous, but let's just make sure as Catholic dads we keep it under control.
Yeah, but also don't be the judgmental person, because like Jeff said at the very beginning, you don't know what that person.
Right.
That might have been a text saying his mom died.
Oh, absolutely.
So and he had said that to his defense. He said he didn't know the circumstance, but we don't know the circumstances of what people are doing, and
absolutely,
maybe he was typing this awesome post about how sweet his daughter is, and he took a picture and he was trying to post it on Facebook.
Could be right. Maybe he was reviewing Catholic Dad's podcast.
I think that's what it was.
All right, thanks all for listening. Appreciate it. If you have any thoughts or feedbacks, let us know. God bless you all, and thanks for keeping up with us.
Saint Joseph,
pray for us. Looks good. Check.
How much check could wood check wood check wood?
Check.
Please.
Check.